Hello, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be going over some different pieces of the footage. I'm gonna attempt to skip over a couple things that don't really have anything going on, like some of the landscapes, and just try to speed it up a little bit so we can get back to the characters, because today we have more landscape based stuff. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. The only thing I want to say first is disclaimer. This is definitely just a video where I kind of look for details, talk about what I think could be happening, and just yap, pretty much. I just talk. And if that's not your thing, totally fine. Feel free to click off. But if it is your thing and you like looking at the footage and you like searching for theories and lore, then stay tuned and feel free to join in the comments. We have a lot of people who have enjoyed kind of breaking down theories and just searching for what could happen in the next game. Alright, let's get started.
It wasn't the UCA that made the final decision. It was APAC, a private corporation. So let love warm you till the morning.
So the first thing I notice is the upside down rainbow, which basically is telling us that either timefall is back and so the rain is going to be hurting people again, or it's basically like it's a natural phenomenon that does occur, but typically it only occurs in really cold areas where light is reflecting backwards. I looked it up one time just to try to figure out the science behind it, but basically for Death Stranding lore, all we need to know is this probably means that the beach is reconnected in some way, because the only time we see reverse rainbows in Death Stranding 1 is basically whenever the beach is close to us or BTs are on their way. The straight white line in the background I think is actually nothing to do with the strings on like Tomorrow or anyone that we see, but I'm pretty sure it's just another way to show lost packages. Like in Death Stranding 1, if someone's package was lost out in the wilderness, you would see blue strings or strands of light, and then they would lead you to that lost package. And just to be thorough, here's a little snip of his outfit. He's definitely got his drawbridge backpack on. He doesn't have a skeleton on, and he doesn't appear to have Lou on his front, but there is, his arm is in the way, so we're not really sure if he has a pod or anything on in this clip, but he does have his drawbridge ring on as well. So I couldn't tell if he had Lou on, but I did notice that he has a gun on, so this area looks very similar to when he's holding Lou in the first trailers, so I assume this is somewhere in the starting area, possibly right after he gets off the Magellan, but it appears that we have a gun pretty quickly in the game, so what Sam says about it being, or Norman Reedus says about it being a more aggressive feeling to the game, I think we're going to come out swinging and already have weapons. We get our first really good look at some of the like technology we might get to use in the game, or I say might, we obviously will, it's in the game. So I see bridges, which I noticed aren't the chiral bridges like we had in the director's cut. It looks like we're going back to just regular old bridges. If you didn't play the director's cut, chiral bridges basically could only be used by Sam. Mules couldn't chase him, other people wouldn't be able to use it because it was locked to his ID. We also have what appears to be a timefall shelter. That's the second circle. And then on the far right, it's difficult to see in this capture, but that is one of the generators that kind of outputs a large electric circle, and then you can recharge your batteries. Something behind the timefall equipment, and I think that might be a mailbox, like a locker in order to put your items in, but I'm not totally sure. Something I noticed right away is that his Odradek is not out, which means we're going to get intense rain without necessarily the BTs and the timefall involved, because if this was timefall rain, his Odradek should be out and showing him kind of where they are. Now, we could argue maybe it's because his BB isn't working, but I actually think that the BB he's currently wearing is going to be kind of a makeshift BB that just doesn't have a literal BB in it, something more similar to what Higgs uses with like a doll or totem. But long story short, I think we are going to encounter like natural disaster thunderstorms without the awfulness of the BTs chasing us down. So notice that Dollman is with us, so just to point that out, Dollman is with us, so we know this is definitely post-Magellan. There are some clips where I cannot find the Dollman character, and so I'm really unclear if maybe they'll just be missions that we don't use him. Also, on the pod, typically whenever it's assumed to be Lou in the trailer, there is a sea anemone or a sea angel keychain on it, and this one doesn't appear to have that, but since it's such a blurry clip, we can't be sure. There's also no gun shown in either of these two snapshots, so it looks like we can still do a weaponless run if we want to. Unless, of course, it's in the cargo on his back, but just saying, you can't see it on either side of his backpack at the moment. We get our first look at kind of the homo demons or the mules or terrorists or who knows. We really don't know. These could just be some random guerrilla warfare, but I assume they're sort of like the non-Bridges version of mules. They might be terrorists. They have similar Odradeks to Higgs's original Odradek, but so did the porters, so, it's unclear if that's going to mean anything. I assume because it's red, that's supposed to show us that they're evil. Something I noticed that I thought was rust at first from like Timefall is actually blood, so we're definitely going to have ammo that can hurt and kill, and I think we're going to get it pretty soon in the game. One of the things that I noticed about his outfit is that he has some patches, but I'd have to do more research to figure out if they come directly with the collector's edition, so you could have them at the beginning of the game, or if they need to be earned. Has the Why Me patch, that's the red upside down triangle. At this point, I couldn't see what he has on the lower part of his backpack. Let me do some zooming. It looks like it's the happy Australian animal, which I have no idea how to say its name, the quokka. We get a zoomed in version of the gun, and we're able to see that it does have some sort of visualizing thing on it, but since we're not really seeing, I guess we're seeing gameplay, I'm not really sure what that is doing for the player. Maybe you can turn off and on a laser. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that these guys are related to Ghost Mech or Higgs somehow, mostly because I think he's probably supplying them with their weapons and their Odradeks, just based on how they look. In the first game, he, was basically the leader of the Homo Demons, and I don't know if this is going to be like a similar pack or if this will be a new group, but looking at the Odradek, the back actually reminds me a lot of the weird filtration, BB, backpack things, whatever you want to call it, on the robots, so I'm curious if it's something similar. The other thing I thought was neat are the new masks. They are similar to the Homo Demons masks from DS1, but much smaller, much easier to see their faces. So I can tell that these guys are wearing a power skeleton of some sort. We can't see Sam's legs, so we don't know if he has his yet. I don't remember if in Death Stranding 1 the Homo Demons had power skeletons or anything like that. I don't remember them having that. So this could be like an upgraded sort of terrorist. So during the gunfight, this guy actually has a rocket backpack on. So if these are the same things as what the robots are wearing, then we have figured out that this is actually a jetpack. He literally does a poof of air and goes through the air to the next spot. When he lands, we get an even better look at Sam's backpack, which has upgrades. We also get to see that Sam does appear to be shooting actual bullets, and we get a little bit better shot of the background and kind of where we are. It looks like he might have a second gun attached at his hip. I'm not sure what the top pouch is. Maybe that's just the extra large pouch, but he's definitely got grenade pouches on the back. There's also like an odd thing in the middle that looks metal almost, and I don't think that's a battery pack, so I'm not really sure what that would be. I think from the way the encampment looks and the fact that we're kind of on a road, we might actually have to make our way through this in order to progress the story. It kind of looks like it might be a checkpoint area. And I just noticed this guy is like dead in the background. He's either knocked out or dead. Probably the best argument we have for them being in cahoots with Higgs is the red rifle that appears to be the same as what the robots use. Sam definitely went for a headshot because he was able to knock his helmet completely off. Another thing I want to point out is that the Odradek seem to be pointed at Sam, which is odd because typically an Odradek is pointed at a BT, but as we saw with like Higgs's Odradek, it actually targeted Sam. So it'll be interesting to know if the new Odradeks target people, and that's how like the terrorists and the robots are using them, versus how we saw them in the last game where like, and probably still will, but for like Fragile's people, they would target BTs or ghosts or, you know, like the tar creatures. So it might be interesting if we see Odradeks that are able to target different things, or if we can select ourselves what we would like to target. That would be interesting. Just for clarity's sake, we can see here that Sam's own Odradek is not targeting, therefore it either doesn't have the software to target humans or is of a different design. We get our first look at Rainey, and in one frame to the next she has a string appear. We know that strings generally appear around Lou, Tomorrow, and sometimes Higgs, but we're still not sure if those strings are because Tomorrow is near him. She is looking down, like she's looking at something, but we don't see it in the clips, and it must not be important enough for her to try to grab it because she runs away, because obviously she is scared she's getting attacked. We can assume that this is in the past, but I'm not sure where to place it, unless she has really quickly growing hair. She has a very long ponytail in the clips that we see her in, but she is wearing the same yellow dress, which is weird to me because I don't understand why they all appear to be wearing the same clothes. I know that technically Sam wore the same Bridget's outfit in his private bunker, but that made sense because it was more like an undershirt and like joggers, kind of like a uniform. But if Rainey has been in the same yellow dress since God knows when, I mean, if this is I don't know, it had to be at least a year because her hair has grown so much. So I find that kind of odd. Like, is she unable to change outfits? Is that the only outfit she likes? Is that like a specific outfit that she finds comfortable? Because at first I thought, well, they get their outfits from the Magellan probably, and it was yellow, which matched like drawbridge and everything. So I'm not totally sure what's going on with what she's wearing. In a couple minutes, I'll try to show you a clip that shows that she actually has Bridget's recycling foundation, or the Bridget foundation, on her jacket. So that's interesting because we know that was created by Bridget in Death Stranding 1 right after the stranding happened, or right before. And basically, because it's the Bridget foundation, we know it was sort of created prior to her becoming president, because then everything kind of becomes Bridget's. So it's just interesting that Rainey is wearing like a pre-stranding rain jacket when we can only assume that what we're seeing is not pre-stranding, but we don't know. They're throwing something at her. At first I thought it was a rock, but I'm not really sure because it appears to be a bag that's tied up. So maybe it's like a totem or something to ward off spirits. The reason I say that is they all have their hoods up. They seem very freaked out by her. And my assumption is that Rainey got her name because she's able to stand in the rain, the timefall, and nothing happens to her. I'm thinking this is probably because she is a still mother that has woken up. And this idea comes from the fact that we see her holding a baby very happily, and at one point she tells Tomorrow that she does hope that her baby can be born someday. Whatever they do throw at her, they clock her like straight in the head with it, which is super rude. We have the Three Stooges in the background, and while their jackets appear darker at first, they do all appear to be yellow rain jackets. They all have their hoods up. They don't appear to be mules, terrorists, homo demons, anything like that. They seem to be very normal people. So I'm curious if they are shunning her for some reason. Like maybe she forgot to pull her hood up and now they realize that she is something strange. Or because this area does look like it's abandoned or like decrepit or something, maybe she has just woken up and they're like, holy crap, like this girl just woke up from the dead. I couldn't tell if the time fall was making the grass grow and die. I also checked for a drawbridge ring just in case, and you'll have to trust me because I couldn't get the words to show up, but that does say the Bridget Foundation. So there's a lot to look at in this clip. If you notice, we have our javelin, our electric exploding javelin, which I think is going to be awesome. We seem to be in some sort of a mule camp. There's something to the far left sticking up. I'm not sure what that is, but I definitely see the Magellan in the background. First, let's take a look at the javelin. I'm pretty sure we see this in the equipment VR room that Fragile shows us. We can see another vehicle, another little camping tent, and then what appears to be the Magellan in the very back. So this must be us either making our way back to the Magellan, or maybe we chose to park here. I mean, maybe we just wanted to go and get all the resources, but I just thought it was weird I didn't notice the Magellan in the background at first. So I don't know what this is, but that sure looks like one of those robed, creepy guys just standing in the background because he doesn't look like any of the other people with the Odradeks and things on. I like that we have like this abandoned building. I did notice there's an odd thing sticking up out of the like mountain up there, so I'm not sure what that is, but I would like more exploration for like urban buildings. There was like one ruined building or ruined factory, I guess two in the director's cut, that you could kind of explore, and I definitely got jump scared by like a giant BT that just tried to murder me. And it was real early in the game, but something that's so exciting is like finding an abandoned area and just like looking around inside it, being able to go into different rooms. That's something we don't see because it is so landscape focused. So it would be really neat if like maybe we can search these like abandoned buildings that we're seeing, these structures. We also get to see kind of the electric bomb javelin in action. That thing is awesome. It just took out a whole truck. It's really nice to maybe have an opportunity to fight back because that was something that you didn't necessarily get to do very much in the other game. It was more of like running away. If you did fight back, it was with like fists and bullets. You didn't really have options like this. So that's exciting.
We must.
This reminds me of the time storm that Cliff sucks us up into, although it doesn't necessarily appear like that's going to actually happen here. We also have a sign that we can read that says steak and beer, basically. This is just a grill restaurant that serves beer. But it helps us know that we're in Mexico at least. And then we can kind of look at his outfit and notice that this is probably early game because there's not a lot of things on his backpack. He still has his gun. It looks like it has a sight. I could not find any evidence of Dahlman in this clip. Couldn't see his legs or anything. We have our strand, which I don't always see in every clip. And then it also appears like we have a pistol. Like, that looks to me like we have a pistol on our thigh. The landscape, as usual, is gorgeous. I thought we'd take an opportunity to check out his backpack, which seems to have changed. So it looks like we might have some sort of cargo case that maybe keeps things safe for us. But I mean, it looks like it has a tiny screen, and it also looks like it might have some sort of meter that is being read. So that's interesting. We also have this new yellow addition to our backpack that's very similar to what we see on like timefall shelters or just like different technologies. So I'm wondering, is this going to somehow help us? Maybe it's making things lighter. Perhaps it's going to be one of those useful items that helps with timefall or damage. It would be interesting if this is what actually keeps the backpack sitting straight up. There's a clip later on where he sets his backpack down and it falls over and then it rises back up on its own. So it's possible that we get like an anti-gravity device that helps us not bang up our cargo, because later on we do see that we're able to take our backpack off and set it down and fight, which is awesome. This is the kind of the first area where we see one of the big distros, or what I'm gonna call like a distro. It has a similarity to like Edge Knot City, where you were kind of on the ocean's edge. And something that I wanted to do was just kind of zoom in on the details and see if there's anything special. When I zoomed in on the cargo, I couldn't see any sort of writing or labels that would give us any idea about anything, out of the ordinary. It doesn't have any logos on it. The gray marks, I'm not really sure what those are, but they don't appear to be anything specific. He also doesn't appear to really have anything new on his backpack. He has a couple large grenade pouches, and that's about it. He does appear to have the power skeleton on finally. And then when we look at the actual distro image, I noticed that there are 3 really large like lights surrounding that area. You can see them there. They're kind of lit up. And, in DS1, we mostly had like small, tiny light poles, but I think these things are serving the same purpose. So I think that's what those are. We get a great close-up at the actual distro. And something that I thought was really interesting is that if we look at Sam's backpack again, we still have that anti-gravity device. We do have the power skeleton, but he's doing his really cute, hi, I'm Sam or whatever. And then we see these trucks back here. I think that is a vehicle. It's a little difficult to see, but it almost seems like it has camo on it. We also get our first look at kind of the naming situation. Later on, we see this on the highway. So I think instead of like Knot City, Knot 1, Knot 2, we have these F1, F2. I've seen all the way up to F5, and it appears that these were built by the APAC company, rather than, of course, like the Bridges company, which makes me feel like APAC has been around as long as Bridges has. It's just kind of the international version. We also have a PAS, APAS, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the automated porter assistance system. That'll have more to do with like robots and less to do with like the distro centers. We get a close-up of the Qpids, and I noticed that there's a new symbol. I didn't recognize this from Death Stranding 1, so I think we have kind of our first idea about the servers on the beach and possibly who created them. So this is the Code Corporation, and this is totally different than what we've seen with APAC, APAS, Bridges, all of those. This is the new company that we've heard nothing about. And perhaps it's the perfectionist in me, but I went and double checked the Death Stranding 1 clips, and they don't say anything about code. They do say control panel, but that's it. So this is definitely a new system or new company that we're working with. Speaking of new interesting things, this keychain on the pod is called a sea angel or sea anemone, and basically this is what they look like. I went and did some research on them, and at first I thought it was chosen just for the fact that this is about a beach. Lou has passed away, we think, and so therefore sea angel makes sense. But upon researching further, I found out that they are about 1 to 2 inches in size, so they are fairly small, but they are predators, and what they do is they use their tentacles to grab like slugs and snails out of their shell and eat them. So they'll hook them and pull them out and basically kill them, which we've seen tentacles quite a bit. So I do think it could be showing us that maybe Lou will come into some powers. If tomorrow is Lou, then we already know that she has some magnificent powers that we've seen in the trailer. So I just thought it was interesting. The other interesting thing is that sea angels are both male and female, which is kind of interesting because with the BBs, they're almost sexless. Like, you never know if you have a girl or a boy BB. We assumed for most of Death Stranding 1 that the BB was male because we thought it was Sam. That's what you're led to believe. And then at the end, you find out that it's a girl. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting concept. It's also got a similar color scheme. The real life one is very orange yellow, just like what we see in the pod. This guy looks awesome. I'm super excited he's in the game. I have no idea what his name is, but I know he's super famous, so I'm excited to kind of get to know him through the game. What I do know is that he looks fit. He looks like he fights for a living. And I noticed that he's one of the first people we see, other than like the mules, to be wearing armor. He has like the thigh guards, which makes me think perhaps we're in a more dangerous area. I think it's interesting that he also has like the little fanny pack bag. His is from APAC instead of Drawbridge, but his outfit is super similar to all the regular Porter outfits. I noticed that he was wearing handcuffs, just like Bridges wore. So this makes me think, did Mama have more contact with other countries, or were the handcuffs something that they sort of put out there free of charge for anyone to use that wanted to stay connected? Unfortunately, I don't know what the little letters say, but I wanted to put the numbers out there in case anyone wanted to know. Here, we look like we're in the same area. Could be a different distro, but what we do know is that's definitely the Qpids doing their thing back there, and Sam having to look towards a threat while he's activating a center. I think, much like what Lochner said in Death Stranding 1, every time you try to bring a city online, you risk contamination from the beach. You risk throwing the balance off even more. And so I think with the supercharged Qpid, that when he turns a distro on, I think you're going to immediately have a boss battle afterwards. I think you're going to see creatures and BTs, and I think he's going to have to defend the Qpid as it's like progressing or loading. If we are in the same distro, then he has removed Lou's pod from his uniform. You can see the like anchor, whatever you want to call it, the bracket sitting there, and there's no pod. So either this is a different distro or this is earlier or later in the game. I'm not really sure. I can't really figure out why he doesn't have a pod in some of the clips. The other thing I thought was really neat is that you can actually see the casing being ejected from the ejector port, and then of course the gas coming out of the rifle after the gunshot, which is just like really cool realism.
Something he said.
So I think that this happens right after we load those Qpids. I think everything gets really crazy. I think because we're connected to the chiral network now, that all of these BTs and creatures suddenly appear. Like, I think that's why the Magellan can travel these areas. I think tar pits suddenly appear. What I find most interesting about these new creatures is they're coming out of like sacs. They literally look like they're coming out of like sacs that would happen after like birth or like animal like I don't want to get too gross, but basically that's what it looks like to me. Like they're literally like being birthed, which goes with all of our baby imagery. And then what I thought was even stranger is that they come out of a cut that is kind of like an X, a horizontal X or a cross, which is exactly the same shape that Sam has on his abdomen that he was given by Amelie. So I'm curious, are these people who are disconnected? Are these monsters they just happen to have that like womb imagery? Because it's kind of similar to like, I don't know, maybe like getting cut open. I find it very weird that they have that same symbol on this like sack of like tar and flesh, and then they come out and we see them a little bit in the rest of the trailer, but mostly we see monsters. So I'm just curious, like, what are these particular monsters and why are they human shaped and why are they trying to kill me? So that is all for today. We'll be starting with these next clips on Tuesday, because this is Thursday's video, and hopefully we will find some more details that maybe give us just a little more insight into the story. I feel like we've learned so much already, And I'm especially excited to see if we can find any more sneaky details like the Magellan in the background of the mule camp or that shadowy figure that we saw. Leave any comments that you'd like to down below, and I'm happy to respond to them whenever I have time. Bye!